We actually have real soil now. Germination's here. There's a little bee colony here.
What you got here?
This is elephant grass. As I try to build my desert forest in the most isolated spot in Texas, I've encountered challenges. Many of them were expected. Most of the challenges I've experienced so far never crossed my mind. I've kept my mind busy brainstorming solutions, but I usually think myself into circles. Getting started is how I've built momentum. I created terraces to harvest as much rainwater as possible, planted a mix of seeds along with cacti and agave, and added mulch to retain moisture. In the last episode, I investigated different types of materials to use on dust-ups. Just because it's free doesn't mean it's a good idea. It takes 6 hours of labor costs, plus all of the fuel that it takes to drive and carry cargo that distance, and not to mention the wear and tear on the vehicle and the trailer. On today's episode, I stumbled on a resource that's been staring me in the face for a couple of years. The nuisance grass at my brother-in-law's house that he absolutely despises. This, my friends, is elephant grass. There are several species known as elephant grass, like Napier, Miscanthus, and the one I'm looking at is giant reed, Arundo donax. It hadn't even occurred to me to look for that grass in Fort Worth. I was using a plant identification app in my brother-in-law's yard, and Arundo donax popped up on the screen. That was a big epiphany because it's the largest potential producer of biomass that I could grow on my ranch. Right now, I've got to bring out all of the mulch and all the soil amendments to the ranch. What if I could grow some of that right on site, even if it's in little quantities? Elephant grass is my kind of plant because it can tolerate so much abuse. The main way it grows is by rhizomes, which most people would call runners. I started with cutting the grass down, mostly to make it easier for me to work, but that step isn't strictly necessary. It's just to make transport and working easier. The rhizomes themselves are what I'm after to transplant onto the Dust Ups Ranch. They're extremely hardy to the point where you can sever them and the individual pieces will grow into new plants. Unfortunately, that's about as much as I can fit in my little SUV on the way out there. I'm bringing my son Samuel with me, so cargo room is limited, but I'm happy to take out what I can. I should have 50, maybe more rhizomes from that, so time to go plant. Good morning. Now I am on the Dust Ups Ranch, and the terrace behind me, we've already got it planted, we're irrigating, and I want to just keep adding organic material on the terrace, so I'm going to go get started planting that elephant grass that I cut at TJ's. Is the biochar already mixed in those spots?
I haven't added any, but I did get it along. I can see it's pretty dark.
Yeah, I
can
noticed.
Still see it from when you put it in.
Oh, I haven't put it in yet.
Well, yeah, you did. You put a big strip right here before we mulched, but most of it's like right here.
Man, that's really moist. Look at that.
It is.
It's nice. That actually resembles soil.
It'll even glom together.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Hey, look. Germination's right there.
Heck yeah. That looks like mesquite.
It's probably a legume.
Yeah.
Because the mix is full of them. Okay, we actually have quite a bit of germinations now. How far are you on this row?
I just have like 10 more feet here. 12.
Okay.
I already did all that down there.
Sweet. Let me grab the grass and we'll get going. The grass is going to go right next to the drip.
Cool.
One of my biggest lessons this year has been learning the order to do things. The biggest mistake was leaving the irrigation line placement until the very end. Our emitters are spaced very far apart. They're about 2 feet or 60 centimeters. But because the water only travels about 10 inches or 25 centimeters away from the emitters, it's really easy to accidentally plant things just a little too far away from the water source. But with the irrigation lines already down and the emitters visible, it's trivial to plant the seeds or the transplants right next to the water source. You just have to be careful as you do it so that you don't damage the lines as you dig and you move them around. I'm just going to start right here on the end. Oh, wow. I can feel the moisture in here. That's great. I was worried that these may have dried out, but they're doing well. You can see that they're still really, really moist, which is awesome. This one's already actually sending out a new root, so I'm going to get this planted and in the ground right next to the drip irrigation. The only critique that I have here for myself is that I should have pruned the stalks and the roots a little bit more before putting them in the ground. Other than that, this whole process went really smoothly. And planting grass is very straightforward. You want to make sure that the roots go into the new location at about the same depth as they were when they were dug out. I'm trying to remove air pockets as I put the dirt back. And as a final step, I want to make sure that the emitter is very close to the grass.
So we're gonna work until 9 in the morning.
We'll probably work till about 11. Like, the goal is not to quit when it's uncomfortable. The goal is to quit when it's not smart to keep working.
So we're gonna be working for a little more than 3 hours.
Yeah. I can't explain how much I enjoy having my son with me. Even if he's just keeping me company and working by holding the camera, it's an opportunity to spend quality time together. I think it's really fun to learn new skills and to show my son that I'm not afraid to try new things. You can like this video if you agree. A core value of mine is building a hard work ethic. Over time, my kids' work ethic gets better and better, and the way I'm doing that is to lead by example and then have my kids join me. If I'm consistently working, then the most obvious way for them to spend time with me is to join me in the work. Sean, from 5 or 10 years ago, would have insisted that the kids grab a shovel and they just sweat away in the sun and look at me, you can do it too. I would have made them completely miserable in the process. As their father, I believe that the most enduring way to build their work ethic and their character is for them to choose to grab a shovel and choose to spend time with me in the sun because they choose to spend time with me. The best way to get the best is when everybody chooses to give their best. You can never force somebody to give their best. That has to be their choice. Elephant grass isn't really normally a parenting tool or a traditional way to go about that, but hey, this is what I happen to be working on, and the fact that I get to spend the time with my son and help build his character in the process, I'm very grateful for it.
Looks like bamboo.
It does look like bamboo. It acts like bamboo. It just doesn't, it requires a fraction of the water of bamboo.
Basically the more efficient source of bamboo.
It's a more efficient source of mulch. And to make sure I'm as comfortable as possible, I am wearing compression socks from Bombas, the sponsor of today's episode. I first discovered compression socks when my wife was pregnant with our third child, where her feet swole up really badly. And that made me realize, hey, when I'm on my feet, I ought to wear compression socks too. They feel great. What I appreciate about Bombas is that all of their products are very well thought out for maximum comfort. These compression socks are comfortably tight on my feet, but not so much that it feels like I'm getting squeezed. And you'll notice on the sock that there's no annoying seam to rub up against your toes. It's just comfortable. Head over to bombas.com/dustups or scan the QR code that you see here on the screen. Make sure you enter in the code DUSTUPS20 to take 20% off of your first order. Again, it's bombas.com/dustups. Make sure you use the promotion code DUSTUPS20 to take 20% off of your first order. This is what this material originally looked like, where it's all this white gravel. And now, like, we actually have real soil now. It looks nice. So it makes sense to put all this material here, add the water here, and then we're just going to keep making this, turn it from dirt into real soil. Just like what you're walking on with these mulch rows. We want to do the same thing with the elephant grass. For the amount of work that's required to grow this, which is very little, it produces an absurd amount of mulch. My job is just going to be to make sure that it doesn't spread. So we don't ever want this to go to seed. Down by the river in Big Bend, there's problem areas where elephant grass grows wild and it crowds out a lot of the native species. I really don't want that. I just want mulch. Every time it starts to grow about this tall, we got to chop and organize. The National Park Service controls the grass with a few methods. They had a controlled burn a few years ago, but I think what they're doing in this clip here is the most interesting. They intentionally infect the grass with wasps and with fungus that's unique only to giant reed. I don't think that's ever likely to be an issue on the Dust Ups Ranch. It only grows in perennial watercourses like the Rio Grande, and I'm 6 miles from there. Giant reed is going to die as soon as I take the irrigation water away. What's the point in growing a grass that you know is going to die? The system isn't just about adding mulch or organic matter. It's also about building a complex web of biology and soil life. Kind of like the manual crankshaft that you see on first-generation automobiles. Sometimes systems need a kickstart just long enough so that the flywheel can take over.
Is it broken up enough where it's no trouble there?
Yeah, it's going pretty smooth, man. Really, I'm not even digging. I'm just moving soil out of the way. I plant the plug and move on. I definitely don't have enough to do the whole row, but it's going to be a pretty substantial increase. It's going to be exciting watching this grow.
Oh yeah.
Do you have biochar?
Well, yeah, we have that bucket right there.
Yeah, we should be using it for sure. Like a huge handful. Like we want a lot. I didn't intend to do this, but we wound up creating an accidental experiment where every line we've planted on the terrace has an increasing amount of biochar. On the far right of the screen is the line that has the least amount of biochar, and as you go inward towards the hillside, I used more biochar on every single line. Each line has more biochar than the one before it. And now I'm really starting to experience the difference in the germinations. The more biochar I add, the more the plants pop up out of the ground. I've been using it like, as one viewer said, I've been using it like magic fairy dust. I'd rather just go crazy with it.
Okay.
For me, it's really important that this channel not be about me. I know it's kind of inevitable since I'm the one on camera most of the time, but I really want it to be more about the Dust Ups project than Sean.
I think the animations help with that a bit.
They do.
I heard you drew some.
Yeah, he's now a regular on the channel. His animations.
I've made literally all of them except the one where my dad puts on a witch hat and then starts stirring.
That one was funny.
Yeah, that was it.
I love having my boys do the animations, and I don't know what it is about Scratch, but anytime I've been around a boy that's 8 or 13 years old and they hear the word Scratch, they're off to the races having a discussion about Scratch for the next hour. That program's been so useful for my kids to learn how to program and to solve problems. When they make animations for the Dust Ups channel, the fact that they get a platform to put their animations out there in public where 100,000 people see their animation every week, it's very encouraging. And I really appreciate those of you leaving comments to encourage my boys to continue pursuing the animation. They really love doing it. They're cooperating. It's just awesome to see, and I'm really grateful for everybody encouraging my kids. There's definitely an order to do things. Like, I think having the irrigation down first is so helpful because it's an obvious marker where everything needs to go. You know, it's actually really nice having the biochar as well because it's an obvious marker of where I need to set down. I'm always thinking about how to do things better, and I know it drives half the commenters crazy watching the inefficiencies. I'm just not going to do something well if I've never done it before. I don't think it takes a genius or a lot of life experience to appreciate. But just by getting started and watching what didn't work, it's so much easier to go back and do it better the next time. I'm nowhere close to good, but I'm definitely heading in the right direction, and that's what I really care about. But this would be where the auger would be nice.
Yeah.
Is just to have the biochar on top, and then you just drill and it'll be mixed without having to do anything extra. And I think even these scoops you're adding, more. I've got a pretty good idea. We barely used any over there. We used more here, and then I want to go nuts here. All right, that's it. I can't believe it worked out that way, but we had exactly enough to do half a line. So the next time I come back, I'll go to Uncle TJ's and get more elephant grass, and I'll plant this next section. This is a really good start. Now I gotta add all the seeds into this mix and try to get everything companion planted with the grass.
What you got here?
This is elephant grass.
Elephant grass.
Yeah, that's what I just planted this morning. Probably about 2 feet taller than you before I cut it and stuck it here.
Oh, wow.
The height that it is right now is about the height we'll cut it to. And then when it grows to about 3 or 4 feet tall, we'll cut it right back down. The goal is to make sure that it never goes to seed.
And you want that for just more biomass?
Yep.
More...
It'll be chop and organize. Right here is the spot that's doing the best, is this strip. And I think it's just because there's mulch on both sides. Germinations here, germinations here, germinations here, some here. Almost all of these have strips, and you can see there's a little bee colony here where I kind of wonder if that emitter is a little loose, because boy, the bees are all over that. Like, this section is doing amazing. And then just while you're walking, make sure that you walk on this part and not the middle. Everybody's really tempted to walk here because it's empty and clear, but we have all the seeds here. Brandon and I were discussing this morning how there's definitely an order to do things to do it well. And one thing we didn't do well is mark where the actual seeds were planted. So I think it's better to put the irrigation lines first. All the emitters make it obvious where you want to plant the seeds, and then you can't really mess it up. Whereas especially on this side, we had to guess where all the seeds are, and obviously it's really affecting the germinations that we're not delivering the water exactly where it needs to go. The biggest enemy out here is the dryness, and the more we compact this, then the air can't get to it, because on the last trip it got down to 4% relative humidity, i.e. the air was bone dry. So the more that we can keep this material away from the air up to a point, the better, because the air won't steal all our moisture. And that's why there's biochar under here, and the cacti is here, just trying to make everything a living cistern. And then this section is the one that's doing the worst. We do have germinations on it, but this outside part is really struggling. And I'm sure it's just because we don't know. We're not entirely confident where we put the seeds, but like even still, we got a nice little set of germinations here. So there are spots that are popping up. All of these are clearly just emerging. Brandon accidentally ran the irrigation system the whole night, which is a good thing because one, we could only lose one toad at a time, but we've been struggling to get the germinations really going. And then I'm coming out here this morning and everything's exploded. So I think it really just needed a big shot in the arm. That's why we want these sticks as little as possible so that they don't lift up the mulch. Here's a nice little spot, some kind of legume. And then this half of the terrace doesn't do great because this terrace has a 1% grade going down this way. And whenever this has been gravity fed, it doesn't go uphill. So most of the water goes that way. But now that we're using a pump and now that we've got more organic material here, hopefully this starts to really explode in the next couple of days. We'll see a lot of germinations. My goal with the water right now is really more about establishment. So this section only gets the water for a year, and then it's just going to get turned off. The goal is to get it established, and then it's got to make it on its own.
And look at this. All the way through my shoe. Into my foot.
Those are unusually long as well.
Boots are highly recommended. Hence why Sean's wearing boots.
The mulch over there compared to the mulch here,
It's a lot more sparse here.
yeah, so we gotta remulch these rows. I can see the difference over here, and walking through here has been really helpful with you because like even this agave that we've transplanted, it's doing okay, but it's clearly struggling and it needs mulch.
Yeah.
It needs a lot of mulch.
What about a chipper?
I want to get a chipper. The ideal thing would be to have a tractor with a PTO driven chipper,
Yeah.
but I also am on a budget, so I might need to just buy a $500 one. This was recorded back in June, and I've already changed my mind on a chipper. I need to delay that purchase. I don't know that wood chips are going to be my primary source material, but I've already done enough work and handled the material enough personally to realize that if I do decide to buy a wood chipper, it's going to be something that can handle 5 cubic yards an hour, and it's going to sit on the back of the trailer, and it's going to have a lot of horsepower. And the reason I'm not obsessed with wood chips at the moment is because I got some good news. A local rancher near Sierra Blanca has a lot of horses and a lot of manure that he needs to get rid of. Really grateful to have access to a free material that's also very close to me because it saves on fuel. Even if horse manure is my main imported material, I'll still need mulch, but it's really about prioritizing what can I bring out here that is giving me the most impact for the time and money. I still am not exactly clear what our hauling requirements are going to be. Experience is going to help me make the best decisions, not buying the most awesome $100,000 truck and then figuring out what I'm going to do with it. Time is my friend while I feel my way into these problems. Next week, I have really big news that involves NRCS and a grant that I hinted about back in March. I have some exciting news and I think you're gonna want to see it. If you want to know what that news is beforehand, then you need to go to dustupsranch.com and sign up for the newsletter. That's how I stay updated with the audience in near real time. Go to dustupsranch.com and I will see you in the next episode.